So we've already discussed a little bit about your inspiration for starting your blog. But do you want to tell me a little more of the backstory?
Yeah. So I talked about being in burnout and how that was just kind of a catalyst event for me to make changes in my life. And as I read stacks and stacks of books and gathered ideas and started applying what was working for me, the teacher part of me just couldn't let go of the idea of not sharing it with other people. I had to share it with other people. And so what that looked like before I started writing was cornering people at social gatherings or in parking lots after an event or whatever, and like sharing all these things that I had learned. And that didn't work so well. People weren't super excited. They weren't exactly looking for tips or ideas, or if they were, it was just a few and I would give them 15. And and then I discovered writing. I've been a journaler my whole life,
Okay.
and I've written, all kinds of things as far as my teacher job, like curriculum and creating planning and all of that. But as far as writing for other people, when I started doing that, I realized this is what I was meant to do. This is how I've been created. This is the way that my brain works. This is the way that it's like a natural progression for my learning. And so it was a very exciting outlet for me. And I got to take all those awkward conversations and turn them into really helpful, practical content that people actually are interested in.
Isn't that funny? People in your real life world aren't necessarily your people as a business or a writer.
Mm-hmm.
Two different sets of groups, aren't they? And they both have value and they
Mm-hmm.
both are part of your life, but they're not the same thing all the time, are they?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I
Or
know
they
it's
are,
hard.
but they only want a small piece, and I want to give them way too much
Yes.
information.
I have so done that as well. And I think in the last season I was like, okay, Joanna, learn to bite your tongue. Don't wait till they ask, but they're not asking. Don't even start because it's so easy,
Yeah.
isn't it? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's the nature of being a writer. It's so easy. Like talking and writing are oddly connected,
Yeah.
actually.
Well, and I'm
Yeah.
just such a practical person that when
hmm
someone comes to me frustrated with something or having a piece of conflict in their life, or something feels like sandpaper, I immediately, so I stand back and I listen with empathy. That is
Yeah.
just a natural part of who I am. But then sometimes too quickly, I move into, well, you could try this, and here's this, and then I've seen this work out, and I read this article on this, and there's a book on this, here's a stack of books on this, and the person's just deer in the headlights, like, I'm not ready for all that information. I just wanted a hug and somebody to listen. So
hmm hmm
so writing is that's my new place where I can do that.
That's fantastic. I hope that somebody reading or listening today thinks to themselves, oh, that's why. Maybe I should try writing, or maybe I should try. Would you suggest podcasting perhaps if you're like, I don't write,
Yeah. Oh,
or
totally.
another outlet, right?
Yeah, or
hmm
I have had so much fun creating TikTok videos,
Oh,
which it feels like I'm leaving a video message for a friend. And
nice.
it's just, a very short little clip. I also post those on Instagram Reels. And so
hmm
you can do that as well. Like, you can put information out there and then people can get it when they're ready. Or
hmm
for 2 years before I even started my blog, I just was writing and putting it in like this document file on my computer. I
Wow.
didn't know what it was going to look like. I didn't know where that writing was going to go. I didn't know who it was even for. I just
hmm
knew I had to get these ideas written down while they were
mm
fresh, while I was experiencing them. And so it's okay to just stash them on your computer, or to have
Yeah.
like an epic, messy notebook that you're just
Yeah.
scribbling in. So, yeah.
Yeah. I wish I had actually done that myself. I'm almost the opposite. When I blog, I sit down, blank sheet of paper, a little prayer. All right, here we go. And I just create and smash it all out. Like I don't have a lot of backlog content like you do. So I admit some days it would be nice to have a messy ream of notes where you're like, I got something. I had a fresh idea. It's always off the cuff right now, and that can be a little bit difficult being a just-in-time writer.
Hmm.
Sometimes I get behind. So, yeah,
Yeah.
it's not a bad thing at all.
I definitely feel like I have a treasure trove of ideas
Mm,
because I'm constantly coming up with ideas or solutions. And so then I just stash them away into my drafts. And
mhm,
sometimes it's a full sentence, sometimes it's a photo, sometimes it's like a conversation that I've had and then some bullet points.
mhm,
Other times it's like paragraphs and paragraphs that, like, I jump out of the shower
mhm.
and I talk text into my phone because I just have to get it out.
Man, that's awesome.
So,
I do that with novel writing actually,
mm,
but that's the only place. Like that's where all of my I do the exact same thing with blogging. I never do that. So I think that's fascinating that you do that with your blogs.
yeah,
That's cool.
I only write nonfiction. So um,
Hmm.
that that is how I do nonfiction. It just comes out of me and sometimes it'll be like, oh, here's a story from my life, or here's like a visual snippet. And so then I'll get
Hmm.
all of that out. And then maybe a month later, I'll go into my drafts and I'll see it and I'll think, oh, I could mess with that. And then I get it out and I write some more tips or some practical ideas, or I link it to a book that I've read or something like that. And so sometimes there are blog posts that take me months to write, and not because I'm sitting there at the computer for months. It's just that I work on it for 5 to 10 minutes and then I walk away from it for a while. I call letting it marinate. So
Hmm.
sometimes it just has to kind of sit and just take some time, and I have to think about it for a bit. So
So if anyone is listening and they're a writer, like how do you know when it's time? How do you know when you feel you finished?
well, what I know when it's time to mess with it, when I get excited by it, or
Mm,
when I have a new experience that I feel like I could add something to it. So that's how
mhm,
I know when I need to pull it out of my drafts and mess with it, is when I see the title or I see the tagline or whatever, and I'm like, oh, that looks interesting today. Um, it might not in 2 weeks, but it's interesting today. And then I know when it's done when I have all the completed pieces to it. So all of my blog posts have I've created kind of a structure that I follow for all my blog posts.
yep, yep,
And so when it has all of those structural pieces to it, then
okay,
it feels complete to me. And then
sure,
for Substack, I am trying to stay around less than 800 words is kind of my goal. And
mhm,
so if I don't want it to go above that point, because then it's too long of a read, I want it to be a shorter read, because I
mhm,
write for
mhm,
people who are feeling overwhelmed and stressed out. I don't want them to be reading some 2,000 word, I don't know, crazy essay that just takes them on tangents. Like, I want it to be very practical and
mhm,
succinct and
mhm.
clear. And as I try to say those words, I can't say them clearly, but you
But
get what
that's
I'm
how the
saying.
writing is.
That's the writing, not the speaking.
Awesome. That's cool. That's cool. Well, I mean, it sounds like you know your people, right? You know them
Mhm.
well, and you're serving them where they're at today, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I've been
I
there.
love
So I
that.
know what it feels like to not have capacity for,
Mhm.
you know, a lot of difficult things, or reading giant books, or
Yeah.
taking the
Yeah.
time to do 1,000 to dos.